Welcome everybody to the February meeting of the Planning Decisions Committee. Yarra City Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people as traditional owners and true sovereigns of the land now known as Yarra. We acknowledge their creative spirit Bunjil, their ancestors and their elders. We acknowledge the strength and resilience of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung, who have never ceded sovereignty and retained strong connections to family, clan and country despite the impacts of European invasion. We also acknowledge the significant contributions made by other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to life in Yarra. We pay our respects to elders from all nations here tonight and to their elders past, present and future. We've got all the councillors here in attendance with the exception of Councillor Wade, who's given her apologies, all the relevant officers. Councillors, I'm going to ask you, each of you, to make a conflict of interest declaration. You may respond, I do, to the following question, which is, do you declare you have familiarised yourself with the matters presented to this meeting and that you do not have a conflict of interest? For some reason, it's not in alphabetical order tonight, so be alert. Me, I do. Councillor Harrison? Deputy Mayor Harrison?
I do.
Councillor Aston?
I do.
Councillor Crossland?
I do.
Councillor Davies?
I do.
Councillor Gomez?
I do.
Councillor Ho? Councillor McKenzie?
I do.
Thank you. The last meeting was on the 27th of January. Can one of the councillors who was there last month please move the minutes? Councillor Gomez, seconded by Councillor McKenzie. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's unanimous, so we've passed the minutes of the last meeting. We've only got one business report tonight. Can you not hear? Okay. Is that better? Yeah, there's nothing I can do about that, but if you can hear, just anyone here. Thank you. So we're obviously talking about 25 to 29 Wangaratta Street, Richmond, agenda item 5.1. We'll first hear from the officers. Did you want to give a brief? I mean, we've taken the report. It's read. Councillors, do you want to hear a brief report from officers? Yes, we do. Officers here tonight for this agenda item. Can one of you give a brief report, please?
Thank you, Chair. This is an application which is in a Section 72 amendment to a planning permit that's already been issued. The planning permit proposed tonight is to remove one car parking space for buildings and works to construct 3 bicycle hoops, for the removal of 14 bikes that were required by condition, to delete conditions 1B and 6B. The only planning permit triggers that we're considering tonight relate to the buildings and works for the mixed-use zone associated with Section 2 use and the works associated with the heritage overlay. There's a bit more in the report that talks about some transitional provisions that came in for the 18th of December last year in relation to car parking. I won't go into it, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Danielle. Any questions at this stage to officers? You will get another chance later on. Councillor Davies, did you? No? Yeah, Councillor Deputy Mayor Harrison's got a question.
So I just wanted to seek clarification. There seems to have been quite a gap between the amendment application being received by officers in November of 2024 to the notification of the residents on the 17th of November 2025 to this matter coming to the Planning Decisions Committee tonight. Can officers just clarify what the delays were there, please?
Through you, Chair, the application was lodged and further information was sought. The applicant applied for various extensions of time to provide that further information. In October 2025, council officers refused the final request for an extension, and from that point on the application information was provided, was advertised and has now come to this PDC.
Thank you. Any other questions? Deputy Mayor Harrison?
Just one more. I'm just curious because we've relied upon a traffic survey which was completed in 2019 for a planning application amendment which was lodged in late 2024. Is that normal that we would rely on something so old, given that this amendment application has come in quite recently and we're now in 2026?
Through you, Chair, given that the application was to remove only one car parking space, we would not require further information to be provided. We would only require updated information if there are more than 10 car parking spaces being sought.
Councillor Davies?
Does that mean since that
point though when when they've put the bike lanes in, when the applicant has had those bike lanes in that car space over that period, essentially illegally? Is that how we should understand it, or because they haven't been granted that permit is that how we should understand it or not?
Through you, Chair. So the bike hoops that have been installed in the car parking space were installed without planning permission, and the application that's come in to legitimise those is a result of planning enforcement action. Just so all those people back home watching understand, so the applicant has not received an approved permit to put the bicycle hoops in, has put them in regardless, and now is asking for a retrospective permit or retrospective acknowledgement of putting those in, just asking for a permit for doing something they did without a permit. Is that essentially? They've been asked to legitimise the installation of the hoops that didn't receive planning approval initially.
I think that's a yes. Councillor Davies, yeah?
So if I had a shed, if I didn't get a permit for a shed and I built that shed in the back of my house, and then an inspector came in and said, you didn't put a permit on, what would happen with that shed?
And Ms Osmond's going to answer that question.
Through you, Mayor, thank you for the question. Each application is assessed on its merits. In this instance, we are dealing with a retrospective application to install bike hoops within a car parking space. I would prefer that we didn't deviate and try to extrapolate how we would deal with any other application, and just consider this application. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank Councillor Davies.
Thanks again. It says in some of the documentation there's 440 employees. About, I think, how many of those live in Yarra and will be commuting to this job? Do we have any hard data about the makeup of those 440 employees?
Through you, Chair, council officers don't. It might be a question for the applicant.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, officers. No more questions at this stage. Thank you. We'll move on to the applicant. We've got Tom Lawless here from Contour Consultants Australia. Welcome. Tom, just come up, just press the button, and you've got 5 minutes to address the meeting as soon as you start talking.
Thank you and good evening, councillors. My name is Tom Lawless. I'm a town planner from Contour Consultants, and I'm here speaking on behalf of the applicant this evening. As a start, I would like to thank planning officers for a collaborative application process that dates back to November of 2024. To provide a bit of planning context, the subject site is located in the mixed-use zone and is affected by the Heritage Overlay Schedule 332, the Environmental Audit Overlay, and the Development Contributions Plan Overlay Schedule 1. Now, the application before you this evening is an amendment to an existing planning permit that was issued by Council in May of 2022. The permit currently allows use of the land for office and a reduction in the statutory car parking requirements under Clause 5206. As approved under the permit, the site includes 25 car parking spaces located at grade along Wangaratta Street and 41 bicycle parking spaces internal to the building. Since approval of the permit, material has been endorsed by Council and a tenant now operates within the office space, that being Mecca. Whilst there are nuances to this application, what is actually proposed is a relatively confined amendment application. More specifically, we're seeking retrospective approval for a reduction in the bicycle spaces provided on site from 31 to 17. That's a reduction of 14 bicycle spaces. It is noted that pursuant to Clause 5234 of the planning scheme, which sets out the statutory bicycle parking rates, the project has a minimum of 10 spaces required. So whilst it's a reduction, we continue to provide in excess of the statutory provisions. Additionally, we are also seeking retrospective approval of bicycle hoops along the Wangaratta Street frontage. And additionally, we're also seeking a one-space reduction in the car parking provisions from 25 to 24. And as council officers mentioned, This is due to the bicycle hoops that are now located within a former car space. As mentioned earlier, the existing permit allows for a reduction in the car parking requirements under clause 5206. Since the permit was issued and the amendment application was lodged, 5206 has been amended to incorporate new methods of calculating car parking rates. Now, under 5206, a minimum car parking rate no longer applies to the subject site, and therefore no permit is required for a reduction sought under clause 5206 of the planning scheme, and subsequently we consider it acceptable. Combine that with the bicycle parking provisions previously mentioned, we note that whilst both quantums are being reduced, they remain compliant and in excess with statutory requirements under the planning scheme. Now, more broadly, we note that the subject site is located within a recognised major activity centre, and the site is ideally located within walking distance to an abundance of public transport options. Now, coming back to that statutory car parking calculation amendment introduced, there continues to be strategic initiatives for less car parking in accessible areas such as the subject site. As previously mentioned, there is an existing tenant within the building, and these amendments are predominantly tenant-driven, who have occupied the building for well over a year and understand its operational needs, all of which are relevant considerations for determining the appropriateness of the amendment. Through the public notice period and in discussions with council, we note that there's been a level of community interest in this application. We're here to note that we appreciate and we're listening to these concerns, and note that in discussions with council, our client would be accepting in providing an additional 2 bicycle spaces to what is currently proposed by way of planning permit condition. Irrespective of what I've just verbalised, it remains the project team and council officers' position that the amendments are an appropriate outcome, having regard to the statutory provisions and site context. Thank you again for your time this evening, and happy to answer any questions or queries you may have.
Thank you. I propose we've only got 2 other speakers. And just press the button in front of you and start talking. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Michael Phillipson's my name, 284 Lennox Street, Richmond. With the long history of this application, I consider if council were to approve this amendment, I'm cynical enough to wonder if the bike parking spaces would be installed and another amendment application immediately lodged to try and reduce them even further. The Planning Department's decision to approve the proposed amendment to grant a permit based on the latest planning amendment VC 277 effective 18/12/25 does not automatically apply to an application retrospectively. In planning law, existing planning permit conditions generally remain in force even if a new planning amendment comes into effect with less restrictive requirements. A new amendment does not invalidate or relax conditions on a permit that is already issued. Sometimes specific planning amendments may include transitional provisions to dictate how existing permits are treated. In this case, in the case of this amendment, there is a transition period for existing applications of 6 months prior to 18/12/25 to provide flexibility in relation to the application of car parking rates for existing applications. As the date of issue for the permit is the 12th of April 22, the application falls well outside the transition and discretionary approval period. All existing conditions still apply in my view, including the reduction of 1 car space contrary to the report. The applicant has advised that the proposed bicycle reduction has been sought due to spatial constraints within the office tenancy layout. Item 41 in part says, having regard to the above, the proposed reduction is considered acceptable. When did spatial concerns become a relevant planning matter? Contrary to item 51B, the amendment has been sought within a pre-VC 277 amendment policy context, not the new policy context. Councillors, today is 3 years, 9 months and 24 days since the 12th of April 22. Why this matter has not been resolved long ago reflects unfavourably on council. The considerable length of time has passed since the permit was issued on April 22nd, caused by council compliance, in my view, lack of endeavour to have the issue resolved, then the applicant requiring 5 attempts over months for the drawings to meet bike parking standards, so the plans are acceptable for endorsement on the 11th of the 4th, 24. Then waiting 8 months before lodging the first amendment for the reduction of car parking on the 2nd of the 12th, 24. Why hadn't compliance resolved the bike parking issues within that 8-month period? Why has the planning department taken over a year to arrive at a decision since the amendment, the latest amendment, was lodged, is unacceptable for a straightforward amendment application? In the 3 years, 9 months and 24 days, there has been no attempt by the applicant to have any bike parking installed except for 3 illegal spots in car space number 24. The recent amendment VC 277, as argued and contrary to the planning report, I believe is of no consequence regarding this application, and it should be considered on the pre-VC 277 amendment planning scheme, the original permit, conditions and long history. I consider the existing permit conditions generous. The 4,600 square metre of office space available should remain. A condition agreed to by all parties in April 22, an agreement the applicant ignored until forced to address. Considering all the above, I ask you to refuse the application.
Thank you, Michael. The next speaker is Carol Pelham-Thorman. 5 minutes.
Hello, good evening. Carol Pelham-Thorman is my name. I'm at 284 Lennox Street. At times not very transparent and by all means delayed action by compliance. We have a City of Yarra transport strategy which tries to promote a range of different means of transport, some of them active, some of them public transport. It's not an either or, it's a situation where there should be a selection for everyone in every situation to choose from what is suitable for their particular purpose and means of transport. And that should be provided so there is ease of use. The problem with not having bikes in the workspace as it is now is that people don't get to see that it's possible to ride to work and that it is easy and convenient to do so because no one else is doing there because there's no safe, secure biking. The other thing about safe, secure biking, from my point of view, who has had my bike stolen twice in the City of Yarra, is that bike parking needs to be secure. And also, with the recent advent of people choosing to ride electric bikes, they're very expensive items. And to leave them locked in a public space on a public coupe down the road is not a good place to put your bike all day when you're working in an office. They come along and they just cut the lock, whatever you've got on them. The last point I'll make is that I think, as Michael mentioned about the space, not having enough space in the tenanted building, I concur that this is an ingenious, very ingenious, knowing the building site, statement, and as according to planning provisions, irrelevant. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Councillors, I've got 3 suggested way forwards here from 2 councillors, but before we get to that, let's just get rid of the questions to start with and then we'll look for a way forward. Would any councillor like to start with a question to either the applicant or to either of the objectors? Deputy Mayor Harrison.
The question is for the applicants.
Tom, if you'd like to come to the front, or obviously, councillors, you can also ask questions to officers as well.
I'd just like to seek clarification around when the occupancy permit or certificate of final inspection was issued in relation to the original planning application. Council doesn't seem to have that on record, and so I'm wondering if you can clarify that point.
Yes, thank you, councillor. Apologies, I don't have that information in front of me, but we would be happy to interrogate this with the applicant and come back to you.
Can you give any indication of how long the building has been occupied without complying with the conditions that were applied to the original permit?
So it's to my understanding that the current office occupant has been there for over a year, maybe closer to 18 months, as far as outside of, call it the endorsed material, as you mentioned. We're only aware of it once, we're made aware of it by council.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, I'm looking for a wait.
Sorry, I do have another question. We wanted to ask about whether the applicant was amenable to contributing to the installation of bike hoops on street in the vicinity of Wangaratta Street.
Yes, we have been made aware of that request. The applicant has informed us that yes, they would be happy for this.
So I wanted to seek clarification for the officers about the cost of doing such an installation.
And could we condition it? Yeah. Ms Osman?
Through you, Chair, we have sought some advice from our teams, and the cost or the installation of a publicly available bike hoop would be in the order of $5,000, and we believe that we could find a location within the vicinity of the area that could accommodate an additional hoop.
Any other questions at this stage? Councillor Davies.
Bit of an outside question. Would you potentially be amenable in reinstating that parking space that you have on there?
Without speaking with the applicant, I'd say no, purely just with the updated car parking rates.
Okay, I'm looking for a way forward. I've got one from Councillor Crossan and two from Deputy Mayor Harrison.
We wanted to put forward an alternate motion to what's already been forward, which would be effectively a combination of what Councillor Crossland and I had put forward, and incorporating the feedback that we've had in relation to an on-street bike hoop contribution. Can we, perhaps having an issue, I think a technical issue in emailing across that, so maybe we can put up the version of Councillor Crossland's version and we can do it verbally about what we wanted to add.
Okay, so governance officers I'm speaking to now, if you could please put on the screen Councillor Crossland's, if it's not already there, that is, Councillor Crossland's amendment, motion. So we're in your hands, Deputy Mayor Harrison. You want to accept this with some modifications, with some additions?
That's correct. So what we would be doing is under one, I'm just looking here what it is here. 1B1, that's right, isn't it? No, hang on a second. I'm just looking at it on here, trying to compare to the numberings. 1B1. So at the end of that paragraph where it says within the subject land, we'd like to add the words or within 2 months of the issue of the amended permit, the permit holder must provide a financial contribution of $5,000 to council for the installation of a public bike hoop within the vicinity of the subject site.
Deputy Mayor Harrison, the officers are trying to type it up as you're saying it. Could you just say it a bit slower, please?
Yes, okay. Shall I start from the...
Just start from the beginning and then they can...
Okay, so...
Thank you.
It would be or within 2 months of the issue of the amended permit, the permit holder must provide a financial contribution of $5,000 to council for the installation of a public bike hoop within the vicinity... Stop. Yep. Have you got that? Just from $5,000 to council for the installation of a public bike hoop within the vicinity of the subject site for all shortfall of bike parking not accommodated on the subject site.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harrison. There are no other changes to Councillor Crossland's
No.
amendment? Okay, so I take it Councillor Crossland is seconding that or moving that? Or
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Councillor Davies?
And this is probably a question for officers, Mary. With that, pardon? Yeah, with that alt, what's the net loss or the net gain of bicycle spaces that this alt now encompasses?
Ms Osmond?
Through you, Mayor, the installation of a bicycle hoop accommodates 2 bikes. So the financial contribution of the $5,000 for the installation of that would accommodate 2 additional bikes. I would probably ask for a brief adjournment, Mayor, if I could just consult the 2 councillors to understand what the...
Is that all right? We just have a brief adjournment? Yep, thank you, councillors. We'll just adjourn for a couple of minutes until everyone's ready. speak. The motion apparently has been slightly changed, so maybe Councillor Harrison can just change just the bit that's changed to the Councillor Crossland original motion, please.
I'll just read out what the text has been changed to. So under 1B1, we now have a minimum of 5 visitor bicycle spaces and 26 employee bicycle spaces within the subject land or within 2 months of the amended permit. The permit must provide a financial contribution of $10,000 to council for the installation of 2 public bike hoops within the vicinity of the subject site. So that is the change to the wording that we have just put through.
Thank you. Okay, would you like to move your motion, please? You've got 3 minutes starting now.
Okay, so this is really, I have to say, a very sorry saga, I think. I am aware of people coming to council to raise the issue that the original planning permit had not been complied with, and this has gone on for a very long time. I know that personally I've been at least 2 council meetings where it's raised what the submitter, Mr Phillipson, pointed out, which is that the applicants entered into a good faith agreement. There was, I believe it was an IDAC meeting at the time where the applicant had agreed to these conditions which applied at the time and then proceeded not to comply with the conditions that had been put in place. Council has had to embark on an enforcement process which has ultimately resulted in this amendment application. It's all very unsatisfactory. There's a lot of water under the bridge. We know that there have been changes made by the state government to the requirements under the planning scheme in terms of car parking requirements. This, I hope, is in some way, I guess, restores some of what was required at least at the time of the permit being issued, and that it might bring this saga to an end. I'm also cognizant of what the submitters have said in relation to providing secure bike parking for employees. And I think that is a key point because that was emphasised in the original traffic and parking report that was provided by the applicants at the time. I don't have anything much more to say, but we'll see where this all ends. I'm hoping that this can bring some kind of restoration of what should have been provided. I know that it's not being provided in full, but it's, you know, I wish that the applicant had done the right thing in the first place. We wouldn't actually be here.
Thank you, Councillor Crossland, in seconding the motion. 3 minutes.
Thank you. If I may, I do have a question, a clarification question to officers about one of the things in here. Ms. Osman, it's noted that we've got like 30 days, 60 days and 2 months. Just in terms of consistency, do they need to be the same or not? I wasn't too sure.
Would you like to answer that question?
Probably pass it over to the team.
Yep. One of the team over there, please.
Through you, Chair. I think the different time frames are okay. They don't need to be exactly the same because it provides sort of staged requirement for plans and then works.
Okay, we've stopped the clock, so you've still got 3. Yep. Far away, please.
Great. Thank you very much, and thank you for that clarification. Look, I think what is on the table now is a way forward on something that has been an issue from a compliance perspective. Noting the introduction of VC 277 regarding car parking maximums, which could apply to live applications within certain parameters for which this application is applicable. This alt motion speaks to bicycle parking provision and the proposed reduction thereof. 5 visitor bicycle parking spaces and 26 employee bicycle parking spaces form part of that permit, which was agreed as a means of offsetting the significant reduction in on-site car parking at the time, with the provision informed by best practice provision under the Built Environment Sustainability Scorecard, BESS. I do not see justification as part of what was proposed for a reduction in the bicycle parking provision. What we have on here is effectively options for you of how you can address this. I'm hoping that you'll choose one and go with that and this be the end of this matter so we can move on and there no longer be issues with compliance moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crossland. Would anyone else like to speak to this motion? Councillor Davies.
I'd like to thank Councillor Harrison and Councillor Crossland for putting this together and working on this with the applicant. However, I do have really genuine concerns about the precedent we're setting, that it suggests that that applicants can act otherwise against council compliance, against the wishes of the community, and essentially get a pretty cheap outcome of $10,000 for a bicycle, a couple of bicycle hoops. I think you're really getting out of this quite easily, quite well. I think this is a very, very good deal for you, for someone who has been non-compliant, hasn't really acted, as Councillor Harrison mentioned, hasn't really acted in good faith. I don't think that we should be supporting this, and I won't be very certain as the council doing this because, you know, for all intents and purposes, we can have people putting pools up without fences and saying, well, we'll get around to it. We can put sheds up and say we'll get permits, we'll get around to it. I think we have to be very careful as a council about what we're stating today. But again, thanks for coming forward. Thanks to the objectors for coming forward and keeping and pushing this perspective. I do, however, think that the council is partially responsible for the situation for not dealing with it quick enough. And we're working to do better. I know that the planning division is, and that's great. And yeah, that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Anyone else like to speak on this motion? Deputy Member Harrison, would you like to exercise your right of reply? Okay, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour of the motion from Deputy Mayor Harrison and Councillor Crossland, please raise your hand. Aston, Crossland, Harrison, Jolly, Mackenzie, Ho, Gomez. All those against? Councillor Davies, that's carried. Thank you all for coming. And I close this meeting at 7:09. Thank you all.